Okay, so I'm here to talk about climate change and what the city of Boulder is trying to do about it. Many of you might know that this has been a pretty big issue in the last couple elections, so this is also the story of why I might have voted the wrong way twice. Aside from my voting record, as an introduction to who I am and why I care about this topic, I'm from Boulder originally, so I really love this community, and I have really enjoyed watching it grow stronger and stronger over the years, especially with all the startups coming in the last few years. So, yay Boulder Startup Week, it's awesome to be here. I'm also a new mom, so working to create a more sustainable future has become extra personal for me now. And finally, I work in marketing and energy efficiency research, so I'm really interested in dorky stuff like how to get more people to turn off the lights through effective communication. So let's talk about what the city of Boulder is trying to do about getting more clean energy. Many of you may know we're working on exploring the idea of creating our own utility so we have more control over our energy in the future, which sounds like a really awesome idea, right? Well, I used to think it sounded awesome. I voted for it twice. And then I started learning more about the utility business. So maybe a city utility could be better than our existing utility, maybe a little worse, but I'd like to talk about why the utility industry right now is really a difficult industry to get into. If you're really jazzed about forming our own utility, you might not want to listen for the next 3 minutes, but I would urge you to just think like think like Nate Silver, not like Karl Rove. So for a snapshot of the industry, you can see that most utilities in Colorado were created pre-World War II, back when increasing demand for electricity really was growing a lot, and so that was a good time to get into the business. If demand was growing around World War II, now you can see that it's flattening out quite a bit, mostly because everything from your fridge to your TV is getting much more efficient. So this is kind of bad news for utility profit margins. Also, bad news for utility profit margin is new and exciting disruptive forces in the industry. For starters, people are putting a lot more solar panels on their houses because of falling costs and new financing options from companies like SolarCity, which are working with Tesla to connect those panels with batteries, reducing demand even more. Other disruptive forces are coming from big companies like Google, who bought Nest for $3.2 billion, or Comcast, who's also starting to sell electricity in deregulated states like Pennsylvania. So these are big players who are getting in to steal market share from utilities. Finally, one of the biggest threats to the industry comes from Mother Nature herself, who with increasingly severe storms and wildfires, it's wreaking havoc on an increasingly old grid, and costs to fix it over the next few decades are in the trillions of dollars. In addition to the cost of maintaining the grid, running a utility is kind of a bummer from a customer service perspective. People don't really think about the power unless it's out or they're paying their bill, and both of those are kind of terrible experiences. So all of these disruptive forces, declining sales, and old infrastructure are combining to create what is known in the industry as the utility death spiral, a feedback loop causing utility sales to decline further. And if you want to learn more about it, that's a fun term to Google. Another real thing is people comparing the utility industry right now to the landline telephone industry, which, as we all know, has been severely disrupted by cell phones. So solar panels, battery storage, and smart thermostats could have a similar impact on the utility industry going forward. Okay, so maybe it's not the best time right now to form a utility, but what else could we do about climate change? Well, for starters, we could make every building in town more efficient, which have a real impact on emissions because the cleanest form of energy is the kind that we don't use at all. That's a great idea, but what else could we do? We really want to do something big. What about using the threat of forming our own utility as leverage to force our existing utility to give us more clean energy? But that would never work because they're evil Earth-destroying dinosaurs and they have only coal-fired power plants, right? Well, actually, they do get a lot of their energy from wind and solar, and they're working on getting more of it in the future. So maybe we could force them to give us more wind and solar and less coal. And then they would also have to give that option to hundreds of other cities that also get their energy from the utility, and that might have a real impact on climate change, going beyond the Boulder bubble to a larger part of the world. So rather than buying a bunch of old poles and wires, maybe we could use the threat of creating our own utility to get a better offer on clean energy for us and hundreds of other cities around the country. If they call our bluff, okay, we're smart enough to get into the business and figure it out if we have to, but I think there's probably some better options that we could explore. So that's just some food for thought when it comes to how we can have a big impact on climate change here in little Boulder, Colorado. Thanks for listening. I love this city, and I know we can come up with a great solution because we're all smart thinkers like Nate Silver. So go Boulder.